The silencing. Captain Alina Vasquez stood at attention in the observation deck of Galactic Assembly Station Nexus 7, watching the stars through reinforced transparent steel. Her dark eyes reflected the distant lights as she checked her chronometer for the third time in 5 minutes. Today would change everything. Today, humanity would finally have a real voice in galactic politics. Nervous Captain. Ambassador Sarah Chen's voice carried a hint of amusement as she approached, her diplomatic robes rustling softly against the polished floor. At 42, Chen had spent the last 8 years fighting for this moment. Every negotiation, every cultural exchange, every careful word had led to this historic session. Just maintaining vigilance, Ambassador, Alina replied, though her hand instinctively moved to the plasma pistol at her side. The security briefings were concerning. Chen nodded, her expression growing serious. For months, intelligence reports had warned of growing hostility from the Hegemony Coalition. The alliance of 12 species, dominated by the militaristic Vorthok Empire, had controlled galactic politics for over 3 centuries. They viewed humanity's rapid expansion and technological advancement as a threat to their established order. The Vorthok have always seen us as upstart primitives, Chen said quietly. But today we prove them wrong. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity deserves a seat at the table. The assembly chamber buzzed with activity as representatives from 47 species took their positions. Alina positioned herself in the security alcove, her trained eyes scanning every delegate, every aide, every shadow. Her team of 12 Earth security operatives had swept the chamber 3 times, deployed sensor networks, and established secure communication lines back to Earth Command. Ambassador Chen took her place at the human delegation podium, a sleek construct of Earth steel and crystalline displays. The chamber fell silent as the Galactic Assembly's ancient protocols commenced. Prime Minister Zethkar of the Vorthok Empire, a towering figure with scaled hide and burning amber eyes, assumed his role as session moderator. The Assembly recognizes Ambassador Chen of the Terran species. Zethkar's voice resonated through the chamber's translation systems, his distaste barely concealed. Chen stepped forward, her voice clear and confident. Honorable delegates, for 8 years humanity has participated in this assembly as observers. We have contributed to galactic peace, shared our technology, and proven our commitment to civilized cooperation. Today, I formally request full membership status for the Terran Confederacy. A ripple of whispers swept through the chamber. Several species had privately expressed support for Earth's petition, but the Hegemony Coalition held decisive influence. Alina noticed the subtle signs of tension, clenched manipulator appendages, flattened cranial ridges, the way certain delegates avoided eye contact. The floor recognizes opposing viewpoints, Zethkar announced, his satisfaction evident. Councillor Vexhai of the Zenthari Collective rose, her insectoid form clicking as she spoke. The Terran species has demonstrated concerning militaristic tendencies. Their expansion rate exceeds acceptable parameters. We question their commitment to peaceful coexistence. Alina's jaw tightened. The Zenthari had been raiding human shipping lanes for 2 years, yet they spoke of peace. Ambassador Chen maintained her composure, responding with facts and figures about humanitarian efforts and peaceful exploration missions. Furthermore, interjected Minister Groktar of the Hegemony Council, humanity's technological development poses security risks. Their artificial intelligence research violates established protocols. An unfounded accusation, Chen replied firmly. Earth's AI development adheres to all galactic guidelines. We share our safety protocols with this assembly repeatedly. The debate continued for hours. Alina watched the political theater unfold, noting how each hegemony member spoke against humanity's petition, while neutral species remained silent. The fix was in, she realized. This entire session was designed to humiliate Earth publicly. But then something unexpected happened. Ambassador Chen began speaking about humanity's unique perspective on cooperation and diversity. She spoke of Earth's history, of species learning to work together despite differences, of the strength found in unity rather than dominance. "We offer not subservience, but partnership," Chen declared, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Humanity seeks to contribute to galactic civilization, not to conquer it. We have faced extinction twice in our history and emerged stronger through cooperation and determination." Elena noticed subtle changes in the neutral delegates' postures. The Aquarian representative leaned forward with interest. The crystalline Etherians hummed in harmony, a sign of approval. Even some hegemony members seemed affected by Chen's words. The human capacity for adaptation and innovation could benefit all species. Chen continued. Our diversity of thought, our refusal to accept impossible odds, our ability to find solutions where others see only problems. These are gifts we offer freely to this assembly. Prime Minister Zethkar's eyes narrowed dangerously. Elena's instincts screamed warning, but she couldn't identify the threat. Her security team reported all clear on their private channel. In conclusion, Ambassador Chen said, her voice ringing with conviction, humanity stands ready to take its place among the civilized species of this galaxy. We ask not for special treatment, but for the recognition we have earned through 8 years of peaceful cooperation. The chamber erupted in discussion. Elena saw something she'd never witnessed before. Several hegemony members arguing among themselves. The Aquarian delegation was actively debating Chen's points. The neutral species bloc seemed to be reaching consensus. Chen had done it. Against all odds, she had swayed enough votes to secure Earth's membership. That's when Elena saw the targeting laser. A thin red beam, barely visible, painted Ambassador Chen's chest. Elena's training kicked in instantly, but she was 50 meters away with a clear shot blocked by protective barriers. Ambassador Dawan. Elena screamed into her comm as she vaulted over the security barrier. The assassination weapon made no sound. One moment Ambassador Chen stood triumphant at her podium. The next she collapsed, a smoking hole through her heart. The exotic energy weapon had vaporized her internal organs instantly. Chaos erupted throughout the chamber. Delegates screamed and fled for exits, while Elena's security team sealed all access points. Elena reached Chen's body within seconds, but it was too late. Earth's greatest diplomat was dead, her blood pooling on the pristine assembly floor. "Secure the scene." Elena barked to her team. "Nobody leaves. I want every delegate scanned, every weapon detected, every piece of evidence preserved." But even as Elena coordinated the investigation, she knew the truth. This had been planned meticulously. The weapon had been fired from within the chamber, but no delegate showed energy discharge residue. The targeting system required line of sight, but surveillance showed no suspicious movements. Prime Minister Zethkar called for order, his voice filled with false sympathy. This tragic incident demonstrates the violence inherent in primitive species. The Assembly will investigate thoroughly. Elena's blood ran cold. The bastard wasn't even trying to hide his satisfaction. Within an hour, Elena's preliminary investigation revealed the horrible truth. The assassination weapon had been built into the chamber itself, hidden within the decorative sculptures that had been gifts from various hegemony species over the years. The targeting system was controlled remotely, fired the moment Chen's speech threatened their political dominance. But worse than the method was the planning. Communications intercepts revealed the conspiracy reached the highest levels of the hegemony coalition. They had invited Earth to this session specifically to murder Ambassador Chen publicly, sending a message to humanity and any other species that might challenge their authority. Elena stood over Chen's covered body, her hands shaking with rage. The woman who had dedicated her life to peaceful cooperation, who had believed in the possibility of galactic harmony, had been murdered for those very beliefs. Captain Vasquez, her communications officer, called urgently. Priority transmission from Earth Command. Elena accepted the encrypted channel. Admiral Torres' grim face appeared on her display. "Elena, we've been monitoring the assembly feeds. Every human colony saw what happened. The reaction is significant. How significant? Admiral, recruitment stations across the Confederacy are being overwhelmed. Civilian shipyards are volunteering for military conversion. The Colonial Assembly has declared a state of emergency and authorized full mobilization. Torres paused, his expression hardening. They killed the wrong human, Elena. They killed our hope for peace. Elena looked back at Ambassador Chen's body, then at the hegemony delegates who were already preparing their public statements about the tragic accident and thorough investigation. What are your orders, Admiral? Bring her home, Captain. Bring Sarah home, and bring us everything you've learned about who did this and how. Torres' voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. The age of human diplomacy just ended. They wanted to see what happens when humanity stops talking and starts acting. They're about to find out. As Elena began coordinating the return of Ambassador Chen's remains, she reflected on the profound change that had just occurred. For decades, humanity had sought acceptance through peaceful means, cultural exchange, and diplomatic cooperation. They had been patient when insulted, measured when provoked, and hopeful when rebuffed. That patience had just died with Sarah Chen. Elena's secure communicator chimed with messages from across human space. The Mars Colonial Defense Force was mobilizing its entire fleet. The asteroid mining consortiums were retasking their industrial capacity for military production. Even the pacifist colonies of the Outer Rim were voting to support military action. As Elena supervised the investigation, she intercepted communications between hegemony delegates. They were already planning their propaganda campaign, their version of events where Ambassador Chen's death was either an accident or the result of human technological incompetence. They didn't understand what they had done. For 8 years, Ambassador Chen had been the voice of human restraint, the advocate for peaceful solutions, the bridge between humanity and the galaxy. She had convinced Earth's leaders to pursue diplomacy over military expansion, cooperation over conquest. With her death, that voice was silenced forever. Elena sealed the evidence packets and prepared for departure. As her transport lifted off from Nexus 7, she transmitted her final report to Earth Command. The investigation was complete. The conspiracy was exposed. The perpetrators were identified. Now it was time for humanity's response. Behind her, the Galactic Assembly continued its sessions, the delegates confident they had solved their human problem permanently. They had no idea that they had just awakened something far more dangerous than an ambitious species seeking political recognition. They had awakened humanity's capacity for righteous fury. The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human warfare was about to begin. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Awakening. Admiral Marcus Torres stood in the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters, watching the tactical displays that showed humanity's response to Ambassador Chen's assassination. 3 weeks had passed since that dark day at Nexus 7, and the transformation was staggering. Every human colony, every space station, every mining operation had answered the call. The Terran Confederacy's population of 12 billion souls had unified with a purpose that surprised even Earth's military leadership. Manufacturing output had increased by 400%. Civilian vessels were being retrofitted with weapons and armor. Even remote research stations were contributing by developing new technologies for the war effort. Admiral, incoming priority transmission from Captain Vasquez, his aide announced. Elena's face appeared on the main screen, her expression grim. She was aboard the heavy cruiser Retribution, one of Earth's most advanced warships, leading humanity's first military response. Report, Captain, Torres ordered. Operation Thunderstrike is ready to commence. We've identified 3 primary hegemony supply depots in the outer systems. Simultaneous strikes will cripple their logistics network and send our message loud and clear. Torres nodded approvingly. The plan was elegant in its brutality. Rather than launching a massive assault that would allow the hegemony to portray humanity as aggressors, they would demonstrate surgical precision and overwhelming force against military targets. Authorized, Captain. Show them what happens when you murder our diplomats." As Elena's transmission ended, Torres reflected on the past 3 weeks. The Hegemony Coalition had made a catastrophic miscalculation. They had believed that killing Ambassador Chen would demoralize humanity, prove their weakness, and cement hegemony dominance. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous than any military they could have imagined. They had created a unified humanity driven by righteous anger. General John Way approached, carrying the latest intelligence reports. "Admiral, we've intercepted communications from 17 neutral species. They're all expressing concern about hegemony stability after the assassination. Several are quietly requesting private meetings with our ambassadors." "Interesting," Torres mused. "They're already sensing weakness. There's more. The hegemony has recalled their fleets from border patrol duties. They're concentrating around their core worlds. They're scared." Torres allowed himself a cold smile. They should be. Across human space, the mobilization continued with terrifying efficiency. On Mars, the Colonial Defense Force had activated reserve units that hadn't seen service in decades. Veteran soldiers emerged from retirement, their eyes hard with purpose. The orbital shipyards of Luna worked around the clock, producing vessels designed with one purpose: to break hegemony military power. But it wasn't just military preparation. Dr. Lisa Park, Earth's foremost xenobiologist and intelligence analyst, had been working with teams across the Confederacy to understand their enemies better than ever before. Every hegemony species had been analyzed, their weaknesses cataloged, their tactics studied. "Admiral," Dr. Park reported via secure channel from her laboratory on Titan, "we've completed behavioral analysis of the hegemony leadership. They operate on hierarchical domination structures. They respect only superior force, not negotiation or compromise." "Recommendations?" Torres asked. "Hit them harder than they think possible, faster than they can respond, with precision that demonstrates our technological superiority. Make them question everything they believed about human capabilities." Torres understood. This wasn't just about revenge for Ambassador Chen, though that certainly motivated every human involved. This was about fundamentally altering humanity's position in galactic politics. The hegemony had to be shown that murdering human diplomats carried consequences beyond their imagination. Commander Jake Morrison led the first wave of attacks. His fighter squadron, the Wraiths, had been enhanced with new technologies developed specifically for this conflict. Stealth systems that made human ships nearly invisible to hegemony sensors. Weapons that could punch through their strongest shields. Engines that outperformed anything in the known galaxy. Wraith leader to all units, Morrison's voice crackled across the tactical network as his squadron approached the first target. Target confirmed. Hegemony Supply Depot Alpha 7. Remember, this is for Ambassador Chen. The attack was devastating in its precision. Morrison's squadron struck without warning, their stealth systems allowing them to bypass the depot's defensive perimeter entirely. The supply depot, which had supported hegemony military operations across 3 star systems, was reduced to expanding debris in less than 15 minutes. Not a single human fighter was lost. 2 hours later, the second depot was destroyed with equal efficiency. Then the third. Across hegemony space, supply lines that had operated for centuries were severed in a matter of hours. The psychological impact was immediate and profound. Prime Minister Zethkar convened an emergency session of the Hegemony Council, his usual arrogance replaced by barely controlled panic. How did they penetrate our defenses so completely? He demanded of his military advisors. Their technology exceeds our intelligence estimates, Admiral Korax admitted reluctantly. Their stealth capabilities are beyond anything we've encountered. Their weapons output suggests power generation methods we don't understand. And their targeting accuracy, added General Vorthik, suggests sensor capabilities that surpass our best systems. Zethkar's amber eyes burned with fury and fear. This is impossible. Humans are primitives. They've only been in space for 2 centuries. But even as he raged, Reports continued arriving of human strikes across hegemony territory. Not random attacks, but precisely targeted operations that demonstrated intimate knowledge of hegemony military structure and capability. Every strike was calculated for maximum strategic impact with minimal collateral damage. It was warfare conducted with surgical precision and implacable determination. Dr. Park's analysis proved accurate. The hegemony leadership, accustomed to dealing with species that respected their authority through fear, had no framework for understanding humanity's response. They had expected either capitulation or chaotic retaliation. Instead, they faced methodical, intelligent warfare conducted by beings who seemed to understand their weaknesses better than they understood themselves. On Earth, Admiral Torres watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. Phase 1 was complete. Hegemony logistics were crippled, their confidence shaken, their military scattered in defensive positions. Now it was time for Phase 2. General Zheng, initiate Operation Revelation. Zheng smiled grimly. With pleasure, Admiral. Operation Revelation targeted the galaxy's information networks. Every major communication hub, every news distribution center, every diplomatic channel suddenly carried the same message. Complete recordings of Ambassador Chen's assassination, intercepted communications proving hegemony conspiracy, and evidence of their systematic oppression of smaller species. The galaxy watched in shock as the truth was revealed. Ambassador Chen's final speech, calling for cooperation and peace, followed immediately by her cold-blooded murder by beings who claimed to represent galactic civilization. Within hours, 17 neutral species formally condemned the assassination. Within days, 3 species withdrew from trade agreements with hegemony members. The carefully constructed political alliance that had dominated galactic politics for centuries began to fracture. But humanity wasn't finished. The Battle of Kepler Station became the turning point that proved humanity's transformation from diplomatic species to military powerhouse. The hegemony, desperate to demonstrate strength after weeks of humiliating defeats, assembled their largest fleet in decades to retake the strategic station that controlled jump routes between 3 major star systems. Commander Morrison led the defense with a mixed fleet of human vessels that shouldn't have stood a chance against superior numbers. The hegemony fleet outnumbered the human defenders 5-1, with heavier ships and more firepower. It didn't matter. Human tactics had evolved beyond anything the hegemony understood. Coordinated fighter strikes disabled enemy command ships, while capital vessels used precision targeting to systematically eliminate threats. The battle that the hegemony expected to last hours was over in 90 minutes. 37 hegemony vessels were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet suffered damage to 3 ships and lost 12 fighters. The message was unmistakable. Humanity was no longer a species to be dismissed or intimidated. Admiral Torres received the battle reports in his command center, surrounded by displays showing the galaxy's new reality. Hegemony power was broken, their authority challenged by species they had dominated for centuries. Neutral species were openly discussing alternatives to hegemony leadership. Admiral, Captain Vasquez reported from the front lines. We're receiving communication requests from over 30 species. They want to discuss new alliance structures, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Torres nodded slowly. This was what Ambassador Chen had truly died for. Not just human recognition, but the chance for all species to determine their own destiny free from hegemony domination. Grant the meetings, Captain. But make one thing clear. We're not seeking to replace the hegemony as galactic overlords. We're offering partnership to any species that respects peaceful cooperation. Understood, Admiral. And the hegemony response. Torres' expression hardened. They had their chance for peace. They chose murder instead. Now they deal with the consequences. The transformation was complete. In 3 weeks, humanity had evolved from a species seeking diplomatic recognition to the galaxy's newest military power. But unlike their predecessors, humans offered cooperation rather than domination, partnership rather than subjugation. The hegemony coalition, built on fear and maintained through oppression, found itself facing something they had never encountered. A species that fought not for conquest, but for the right of all civilized beings to choose their own path. Ambassador Sarah Chen's dream of galactic cooperation lived on, but it would be built on humanity's terms now. The galaxy had killed Earth's voice of peace and awakened something far more dangerous: Earth's capacity for righteous war in service of a just cause. The age of hegemony dominance was over. The age of true galactic civilization, built on equality rather than fear, was about to begin, and humanity would make sure it was built to last.